This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the Secure Texting Desktop Icon Application and Training module for providers. The point and purpose of this tutorial is to familiarize providers with how to use the desktop application of MedArchon's or QUARC Secure Texting Application. If you are reviewing this video, it would be my recommendation that you also have the opportunity to review the mobile device videos which are available through Signature Healthcare's Brockton Hospital's website. The YouTube videos are available to review direct texting and patient-centric texting for mobile devices. But as stated, the purpose of this video is to familiarize you with the desktop version and being able to utilize this from your workstation. Let's begin. There are two ways to access the desktop application of QUARC. The first would be to simply click on the icon on the desktop, this blue icon with the white Q, or you are also able to access it through Meditech. In this situation, I'm going to access it through Meditech, as for most providers, this is where they will find where they're doing their normal activities and patient care. So anywhere within the Meditech application, providers can certainly click on the globe icon loaded in the right lower hand corner, and by doing so you'll see the QUARC desktop texting. By clicking on here, this will launch you into QUARC. Once you arrive to the screen, you will need to use your Active Directory or Meditech username and password to log in to QUARC. And if you have not already set up your access, this would be an initial step. I have already set up my access, and therefore it brings me directly to the desktop version. Let's talk briefly about what we're looking at here. As you can see, based on this desktop version, I have several things that are in front of us. The first is that I have a list of the conversations that I have been having ongoing with patients and with providers. These are located here. You'll notice that there are a variety of priorities that have been attached to these texts depending on the issue or the problem. For example, this first one with ZZ Testimelo was an ASAP, and this was due to a lab value, as we can see here. By clicking on it, I can open the message. You will see that it is regarding this patient. It is a patient-centric text, and in it you will see the issue at hand. That is, there's a potassium of 7.2. Please call me at the following extension. Now, this was sent to me, and as I view it, then it will acknowledge to the provider who sent it to me that I have viewed this, and in turn now I have the opportunity to respond. One key important point, which is brought up also in our mobile devices, is that when you choose to respond to a conversation or to a text, please note on the desktop version down at the bottom here, this is the opportunity to respond. You'll notice the cursor goes immediately here, and here you have several options. The first is, if I'm going to respond to this, then I should simply type in my response. And from here, it is highly recommended, particularly with any prioritized issues like such as this, as soon as possible, which means that I am responsible for responding within the next 15 minutes to this response. Otherwise, it will be escalated to someone else on my team. But since I don't want it to escalate, I do need to respond. I could simply click on it, which would acknowledge to that provider that sent it to me that I've recognized the response, that I will address the situation. However, if I do not click on it, then the problem will escalate to someone else, other member in the team. If I simply just type in this, I will call you in a moment, and hit send, then QUARC does not know that I have actually acknowledged it. And the functionality to stop escalation, I would need to hit on it. So the point being is that if you type anything here, particularly with responding to a timed issue, always be sure that you click on it. And clicking on it, as you can see, this will then send the response to the individual, and it will also extinguish any escalation of the process. Now, if you will note as well that when this is reviewed, and I don't have a provider on the other end at this point, as this is a test patient, I would see their initials come up and that they have viewed the text, thus completing the loop of communication. One nice feature of this as well, which you also have on the mobile device, is that you have the ability to involve other clinicians in the conversation. Particularly for this patient, let's say that this is a dialysis patient, and I wish to also include the nephrologist in this conversation between whoever sent it to me and regarding myself. To do this, you'll see up here in the right-hand corner, participants. By clicking on this, I have the ability at this time to add another provider. I can certainly do this by adding another provider to assist, and in doing so, it will immediately say who was added and by whom, and this will loop them into the conversation. At this point, this is a test, and I will let him know that. And he will be able to view the conversation and weigh in for this particular issue for the patient, if necessary. Now you will notice that when I added this, you can see that he responded. And this is, again, it closes the loop on the conversation. He's been added to the conversation. He could comment if he wished to do so. This is another nice feature, and it also is an available feature on the mobile device that you can have by clicking on the blue eye up in the right-hand corner when utilizing your mobile device. Coming back over here to my left, at the beginning of each shift, if you are involved in a unit, such as perhaps the emergency department or our hospitalist, if you are assigning patients to yourself or signing up for a role, then the means to do that is by clicking on patients down here. And you will notice that you will have my patients, and in this case, I have hospitalist service or all. By doing so, if I, for example, am on the hospitalist service and I need to sign up for a particular team, it's easy enough to do by simply finding the role that I will fill. In this case, I'm going to be the nocturnist covering the A5C3 by clicking on Edit. You'll notice that I have already signed up for this role. If it was not me and I could simply click on it, remove it, and type in another provider who may be now going to be the one to replace that role. Simple enough. In this case, I'm going to leave that unattended. And the point and purpose of this is that when providers are attempting to send text, they can look a person up in the directory to find the person, simple enough, or by role, for example. Going back to my chats, again, we have, again, the ability to manage any of the conversations and going forward, able to know when we're actually receiving them. You will notice that if you have your phone, your mobile device with QUARC open and registered, and you're carrying it with you, you will receive messages both on your mobile device and on the desktop. Again, this is the means of utilizing the desktop application of QUARC. It is quite straightforward. One thing I want to point out in creating text, again, is that when you begin the process right here, this little notepad and paper, by clicking on it, it begins the whole process. And when you want to choose a patient, you would simply click into the patient. At this point, by typing the patient's name, and typically it will begin to show, and you can identify which patient it is you want to send a text on. This, of course, being a patient-centric text. One thing that I also want to point out as well is that from here, if, for example, I pick Jane D test, I then have the ability to pick my issue, whatever that may be, or if it's just a general issue without any particular recipient to go to, I can simply click it, and then to create my provider, I again can do a lookup or begin typing a name, and from here I would be able to find the appropriate individual by clicking on it, and I can type my message and send. If in the event you do not want to send this message, typically what I do is simply click off the field to delete it and come back in, and you will begin to see how you can start to review or create a new message. I would warn you that when you go in to add a patient, you never want to create a new patient. There's no reason to create a new patient. All of the patients that have registered inpatient or outpatient are already in the system. So do not click on new patient. If you do, you're going to see this. And this is not anything a provider should have to fill out nor complete. These are patients that are already in the system. So in order to remove this, at this point, what I would recommend is that you avoid using that and simply, as I said, click in the patient field, start to type the patient, and you will find your patient there. You also have the ability to look them up by room number, and you can begin typing in a room number, and the patient will come up and create two and your issue and send. I hope you found this to be helpful. If you have further questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to the Medical Staff Education Office regarding the use of the desktop device.